Welcome to Honeybee. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. Sometimes, the deepest betrayal ends up teaching you the most important lesson about your own value. My name is Aaron, and this is the story of how uncovering my girlfriend's real motives saved me from a lifetime of being used by someone who never truly loved me. At 29, I worked as a senior accountant at a mid-sized firm in Sacramento and led a quiet, comfortable life. When my dad passed away from cancer, he left me a few valuable things, including his nearly paid-off house. Suddenly, I had more financial freedom and space than most people my age could even imagine. I met Stephanie at a coffee shop near my office where she worked. She first noticed me as a regular and started small conversations with me. Eventually, we exchanged numbers, and things quickly became serious. Our first dates felt perfect. Stephanie was stunning inside and out, and those early months felt like the start of something real. She often came over after her shifts, and we'd cook dinner, watch movies, and talk about our days. She seemed genuinely interested in my work, asking questions about my clients and projects. She admired my home, marveling at the space, the hardwood floors, and the renovated kitchen my father had updated before getting sick. About 6 months in, I learned about her financial struggles. Her job barely covered rent and car payments, leaving little for groceries or emergencies. When her car broke down and needed expensive repairs, she panicked. Without hesitation, I offered to cover the cost. The relief on her face was touching. She hugged me and said she didn't know what she would have done without me. It felt good to be there for someone I was falling in love with. Over time, I helped with other expenses. Part of her rent when her hours were cut, groceries during tight months, even a new dress for an important corporate visit at her job. She was always thankful and promised to pay me back someday, though we both knew that wasn't likely on her salary. After about a year, her lease renewal came with a steep rent hike, so I suggested she move in with me. It made sense. She'd save money, and we'd spend more time together. Honestly, I'd grown used to having her around. The house felt warmer with her there. She hesitated, worried about taking advantage of me. But I reassured her that contributing a small amount toward utilities and groceries would actually help. Living together felt like the natural next step. She got a key, decorated the guest room as a closet, and slowly her things filled the house. After 2 years, I was confident enough to introduce her to my extended family. At a summer barbecue, she charmed everyone. My uncle even pulled me aside to say how happy he was to see me with someone who clearly cared. Their approval meant the world to me. By then, I was seriously considering proposing. We had worked through most early relationship growing pains, and living together had only made me love her more. During our talks about the future, I began sharing more details about my finances, the house, my father's investments, the trust fund I'd received at 35, the rental properties, and the life insurance payout that had secured my future. I wasn't bragging, just opening up about the life we might share. Stephanie listened closely, asking thoughtful, sometimes detailed questions about amounts and timelines. She often said how lucky I was to have such security. Around this time, she also shared more about her ex. They dated for 3 years, and she described him as controlling, jealous, and even physically aggressive toward the end. Hearing her stories made me want to protect her even more. Looking back, I see now that there were red flags I ignored because I was so in love. The first was how often her ex came up in conversation. When I gently pointed it out, she said 3 years with someone leaves a mark and that it was natural to make comparisons. I accepted that, believing she just needed time to heal. The next warning sign was how our physical intimacy started to fade. Our first year had been passionate and fulfilling, but after she moved in, she often claimed she was too tired, too stressed, or just not in the mood. When I asked if something was wrong, she reassured me it was just a lower sex drive and that living together had taken the pressure off. I believed her because I didn't want to pressure her. But the biggest sign, the one I completely missed, was how focused she was on my finances. She asked about exact amounts of my accounts, whether there were restrictions on the trust fund, even if marriage could affect access to the money. I took this as her being serious about our future, but in reality, She was collecting information. Everything fell apart one night in October. Stephanie came home from a late shift, ate dinner, and went to bed early. I stayed up working, then came into the bedroom around midnight. She was lying on her side, apparently asleep, but her phone screen was lit up with messages. Normally, I wouldn't have looked, but curiosity got the better of me. The conversation on the screen shattered my world. It was her ex. She had written, "I'm just waiting for his inheritance. Then I'm yours." My stomach dropped. Scrolling further confirmed the truth. They had been talking for months, laughing at my trust, making plans for after she left me, even mocking how easily I shared financial details. I sat in the dark for almost an hour, realizing the woman next to me wasn't my girlfriend but a con artist who had played me perfectly. But once the shock passed, I felt clarity. She didn't love me. She loved what I could give her. I didn't wake her up. Instead, I calmly put her phone back and spent the night planning. The next morning, I acted completely normal. Stephanie had no idea I knew the truth, which gave me time to prepare. I documented her messages, took screenshots, and quietly canceled any plans of proposing. Then I decided to give her exactly what she feared: life without financial security. A few days later, I told her there were issues with my firm, that we might lose a big client, and that my job and my father's estate were both at risk. I said money would be tight, maybe for years, and we might even lose the house. At first, Stephanie was supportive, offering to work extra shifts. But within a week, her behavior started to change. She withdrew emotionally, stopped cooking, avoided spending time together. By the second week, she was detached and irritable. By the third, she complained about our cheap lifestyle and said downsizing would feel like failure. By the fourth week, she was rarely home. One evening, she snapped and said she was tired of carrying dead weight and couldn't handle being with someone who couldn't provide. The next day, she broke up with me, coldly, without emotion. I stayed calm, agreed with her decision, and began planning her move out. She seemed almost disappointed at my lack of begging or tears. Within a week, she was gone, and soon after, she was posting pictures online about her fresh start and choosing happiness. What she didn't know was that my finances were perfectly fine. I had just tested her, and she failed. Within 2 months, reality hit her hard. Her ex hadn't changed. He was still controlling, unstable, and financially reckless. Friends told me she was working extra hours just to cover rent and utilities. Within months, she started texting me, apologizing, saying she missed me and had made a mistake. I ignored every message and call. 6 months later, she showed up at my door, crying, saying leaving me was the biggest mistake of her life, begging for another chance. I listened quietly, then told her the truth. You walked away the moment I pretended to have nothing. That told me everything I needed to know. I shut the door and never saw her again. Later, I heard she left town after breaking up with her ex. Looking back, I realized I was never truly in a relationship. I was just a resource to her. Every sweet moment, every "I love you" had been an act. The hardest part wasn't betrayal. It was realizing how completely I'd been fooled. But I also learned something priceless. My worth isn't measured by what I can give financially. I deserve someone who loves me for me, not my bank account. Losing Stephanie wasn't a tragedy. It was freedom. If you feel like your partner values your money more than your presence, pay attention. Real love doesn't make you audition for affection or compete with someone's backup plan. In the end, Stephanie's betrayal became a gift. She didn't ruin my life. She freed me from wasting it on someone who never deserved me. And that's worth more than any inheritance. Thank you for listening.